to another edition of Safe Communities. My name is Joe McDonald. I am the Sheriff of Plymouth County, and joining me in this episode are two colleagues and very dear friends of mine, Marshfield Police Chief Phil Tavares and our District Attorney in Plymouth County, Tim Cruz. Thank you for coming on the show today and sharing some important information with the viewers. I appreciate you guys coming down.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
It's a pleasure.
Great, thank you. You know, one of the things that District Attorney Cruz and I do a lot of, we travel the county many times together, sometimes separately, and we talk about some of the things that that are important to a lot of the members of the community. Specifically, you know, how can you make yourself safer? And today, one of the things we wanted to talk about was scams, because there's a lot of scams going on now, identity theft. You know, we're seeing a lot of that in the courts, and I'm sure you're seeing a lot of that.
Unfortunately,
your officers are investigating. Yeah. So Tim, if you would, you know, want to talk about some of those scams that we see coming around right now.
Sure, thanks, Sheriff. I know that we're all involved, and the people in our community know about do not calls that they can get enlisted with from state and federal authorities, so the people can't call them through their homes. But still, the telephone scams and the telemarketers are still out there. And we've been having a number of scams as pertains to individuals calling up, pretending that they may be the grandchild of some senior citizen that perhaps is sleeping. Usually it's at night. Wake them up out of a deep sleep, and we'll talk to them. And it's such a shocking phone call, alleging that they are in trouble. They may be traveling abroad with a friend of theirs or whatever, and that something happened, some legal infraction, and they're being held either against their will or they're in custody, and they need an immediate transfer of money from their grandparent to some Western Union account. And unfortunately, we've had a number of individuals within our county, as well as within the Commonwealth, that have actually sent that money without doing really an appropriate investigation, without making a phone call to their daughter or their son if there's an allegation to their grandchild, because the grandchild's on one side of the phone saying, please, Nana or Papa, don't call Mom or Dad. Just send me the money and get me out of this trouble. Yeah. And unfortunately, once that money's gone, we really can't get it back. So people should understand when they're getting phone calls, verify what's going on before you react and start sending large sums of money anywhere.
Yeah, and they're never asking for small sums of money. That's
right.
You know, it's always a big one. But have you seen an increase in this type of activity?
We have, and what's really problematic is that it seems so real to the victims, because they receive information that they've retrieved off of social media sites like Facebook. And people will just put up there, hey, I'm going on vacation, I'll be overseas, and all their private information about, you know, their grandparents are on there, pictures of their grandparents' names, where people live, when they're going on vacation, where they're going, and oftentimes it is when they're overseas that they will attempt these scams. Right. We've seen an awful lot of them, lot of them.
So the crooks are able to get all this information and make what appears to be a very legitimate phone call to these people. I can see where that would be very harrowing, but also very believable, where people would fall for that.
Right, and also, Sheriff, that what happens a lot is a lot of these criminals, really, for lack of a better word, are hacking into people's accounts, whether it be their emails accounts or their Facebook accounts, and that's how they get them. And you know, the Facebook issue is out there, and people should be very leery of what they put out there for public information, because somebody can hack into your account, somebody can get your information, and then they're going to use that against you at some other point. So let's be careful with our information. It's as important to a key to our house is a key to our information in our Facebook, and things such as social security numbers, our driver's license numbers. All the things should be held very tight to each other.
Yeah, we should be careful what we're posting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Are there any other scams that you're seeing, Phil, as your officers are out there patrolling?
We had a family in Marshfield, unfortunately. Again, a lot of times the elderly prey victim to this type of a scam. The Jamaican lottery. We've seen people go as far as doing the reverse mortgage on the house.
Wow.
And paying hundreds of thousands of dollars in what they believe to be taxes upon the millions of dollars that they win. And unfortunately, they're so convincing, and they string the people along, and it's very difficult to investigate who they are or prosecute them, because they are overseas. And people are embarrassed, so they won't report it. But when we've been made aware of it, they're reluctant to let us get involved in it, because they truly believe that they have one and the money is coming any day.
Yeah, I've received those letters myself, and You know, I don't know if you guys have received those.
We receive them at the district attorney's office, and we receive the emails regarding that we've won various lotteries. One rule that we should all live by: if you didn't enter a lottery, you cannot win it. So when you get these things from Australia or Jamaica or wherever it may be, if you haven't played a lottery, you haven't won. And plus, if somebody's going to be out there alleging they're going to give you millions of dollars for a short amount of money up front, that really should set off an alarm. Let's go back to the old adage, you know, nobody gives something for nothing. And that's really what it is. And I think that, unfortunately, they attack our seniors because they realize our seniors are more caring, they're more trusting. And I think the worst thing that we can that can be done is, if you do get scammed, is not to tell somebody about it, because we need to get the word out. And it's important to let people understand that. And don't be embarrassed, because the people that are doing this is their job. They're professionals, and they talk people out of things all the time. So if you do get beat on one of these, let's reach out to law enforcement. Let's see what we can do about stopping it. We may not be able to get your money back, but we might be able to prevent somebody else from being ripped off.
Yeah, and that's important.
If it's too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah, that's a good adage. You know, and it's interesting, Chief Tavares brings up the fact that many times these individuals are offshore, even international individuals, so that makes it very difficult for us here locally to prosecute them. Would you want to speak to that at all, Tim?
Absolutely, Sheriff. I mean, I have jurisdiction in Plymouth County. Many times, if an individual is doing this beyond counties, therefore we'd have to get the Attorney General involved, who has statewide jurisdiction. But when you're dealing with potential mail fraud or federal issues, because now you're out of state, you have to get U.S. attorneys involved in it. And many times it's not for, although it's a large sum of money to the people, it's really not a large sum of money for the purposes of prosecution. So therefore, it's really important, I think, to understand that when you are getting those phone calls and your phone's ringing, if you do pick up, and many times people may be at home, they may be alone, they may be lonely, they want to pick up to talk to somebody. What I always tell people is, if you don't want to talk to that person, and studies have shown that the longer they have somebody on the phone, the more likely it is you're going to purchase something that you may not want it, hang up your phone. And we often tell the story of a woman here in our county that thought it was rude to hang up, did not want to hang up to anybody.
She wasn't raised that way.
That's not the way she was brought up. So what she would do is she would take out her Bible and she would read to the telemarketer / person on the phone, and eventually they would hang up on her. And that way is one way that she countered with it. But what I tell everybody is, if you're on the phone and if somebody's trying to talk you out of something and you don't want to do that, hang your phone up. And it's simple as that.
Yeah. You know, the wealth of information that is available on our Facebook pages, that's available about us online, is sometimes scary and utilized, as you pointed out earlier, Phil, by the bad guys. But sometimes there are some scams going around, and I know Tim can speak to this one, where these guys are so clever, they don't even have to have anything other than your name and your phone number and call you up. The jury duty scam, if you tell the folks about that.
The jury scam that's going on right now is that someone will call your house and say, is this Tim Cruz? And you'll say yes. They'll say, well, there's a warrant for your arrest because you didn't show up for jury duty. And of course you're startled by that. And you say, what do you mean? I didn't get any notice in the mail. And that person on the other line knows the basics of the way it works and will start asking you questions. And then all of a sudden they'll say to you, well, is this Cruz? Yes. And what's your social security number? And now you're taken aback a little bit. Somebody's accusing you of something, and you very well may give that person your information that you normally wouldn't give them. Your social security, where you live, your phone numbers, things such as that. And before you know it, the person on the phone will say, oh, you're right, you're the wrong Cruz, and we're sorry for the inconvenience, and they'll hang up. But now they've got your information.
Right.
So to be careful. When people call you up or they try to startle you into something, take a step back. And when some people tell you that the police are calling and they have a warrant for your arrest, trust me on this one. The police don't call. They're coming if they have a warrant for you. So therefore, they're not going to call you up and tell you that they have a warrant for your arrest.
Right. Wow. Are there any other particular scams that you can think of, Chief, that you've seen recently?
Primarily the ones that we're seeing now are the, your child or your granddaughter or grandson has been kidnapped. The lottery one is a big one. I had airline tickets for round-trip flights sent to my house. I just had to pay a couple of $100 to get them. We've seen that a few different times.
Yeah, those emails that you received?
Yes. I actually had a letter sent to my house.
Oh.
Yeah, and we do get the emails as well.
Yeah, one of the things, we recently had one of the members of my command staff actually scammed, and he was trying to, he wanted to go on a little vacation, and answered one of those email ads that you get, Travelocity or one of those websites that will book you the discount hotel rooms. And he responded to the email that he received, unsolicited, and he ended up putting in, he reserved some rooms. He then was asked he could save even more money if he applied for a credit card. So he applied for the credit card, putting in all of his personal information, and sent it off, thinking that this is great, I've saved money, I've booked a vacation.
Sure.
And he's coming back from that vacation actually today. But luckily for him, he called, he didn't receive any emails back indicating that they'd received any information on him, nothing from the hotel where he was going to. So he called the hotel, they had no record of a reservation for him.
Right.
So he knew at that moment he'd been scammed, so he reserved the room through the hotel, and he bought himself the LifeLock service. Now, granted, you don't need, what do you think about those services, actually? I'll ask that question, too.
I mean, I think that they're effective. It's what they do, but also my understanding is you can do that without having to hire or retain one of those
Right.
services. You can do that yourself. You know, I just think that, you know, I think the word, once again, a word to the wise. When people are reaching out to you for information unsolicited, that should set a red flag off.
Right.
Your bank is not going to call you and ask you your account number. The store is not going to call you up and ask you your social security number. And you should always feel free that if you have a card of, say, a major store and you want to call them, the number is usually in the back of the card.
Right.
And they've got your information. So when people call you and they try to get something out of you, generally speaking, they should set off a red flag. And never be afraid to call your local police department, call the district attorney's office, call the attorney general's office, call the Better Business Bureau. Never be afraid to make a phone call, because we work for you. And if you have a question on something, whether it be telemarketers, whether it be handyman scams, whether it be making gifts to charity, call us up and let us help you, because we can help you in front of it. But once they get whatever they want from you, it makes it very difficult to chase it down. Even if we catch the perpetrator later on, restitution is going to be something that's very difficult to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's important for people to know that, you know, there really is no shame in falling victim to one of these scams, because they are so clever. They're professionals,
Right.
as Tim points out. And it's important that we know what's going on so that we can warn other people.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, the one other one that just came to mind that we see from time to time is people that are selling things online. They'll get a call from a buyer, and they'll send them a check and just ask if they can send back a certain amount. They'll overpay for it, and then they'll just ask them to send back, you know, hundreds of dollars. And we've actually seen a lot of that in Marshfield.
Yeah. And those checks, when they receive them, they look legitimate?
They look legit. They're cashed at the bank, and then they don't find out for a few days later. In the interim, they've already sent
Wow.
the extra money back to them.
So they've sent the money and
Yeah.
endorsed?
And many times, a lot of those checks really are legitimate, but they've been finagled. So instead of maybe $500, maybe it was a $5 check. And it was American Express money order, things such as that. And we've had, as you and I know, Sheriff, we do many senior luncheons throughout the year. We bring in people from the U.S. Postal Inspector Service, and they talk about that. And he actually brings in the real checks. So this is a check with real serial numbers, but it was a check for $5, not $5,000.
And how convincing were those when you looked at them?
They looked as good as anything.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree. It's like counterfeiters.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's important that people know that these scams are out there, and that you know there is no shame in falling victim to these. It's important that you let us know for many reasons, so that we can chase that bad guy and try and bring him to justice, but also to prevent anybody else from falling victim to similar scams. And it's important to remember that these scammers are professionals. This is their job. This is what they do every day, day in and day out.
Right.
And they're very good at it.
Yeah, and the internet now has given them not just insights into us, but a way to reach us that they couldn't before.
Right.
So my suggestion to that member of my command staff who answered that email would have been, if it looked like a good deal, maybe go to their website rather than to hit a link in what he received. So,
Right.
you know, you've always got to be one step ahead, or try to be one step ahead. It can be very, very difficult. So,
And when you hit that link, watch the address
yes.
and make sure that it's the correct address.
Yeah, that's another great point. You know, sometimes when you highlight that or put it there, you can see it's directing you to another web address. And sometimes if that web address really has no connection to the business or the product that you're seeking, that could be a hint. Yeah, that's good. Well, that's good. Well, hopefully people will know to contact your office DA Cruz or the police departments when they have questions about those things, or the sheriff's office. You know, we're always happy to talk about those. But we need to get the word out there, and hopefully anybody that sees this show will talk to other people about this and let them know that these scammers are out there and they're working real hard to get your money. So that's a good thing.
Right.
Well, let's fight them the best we can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
People are a lot of times afraid to call the police, or they don't want to bother the police. We're waiting for your call, and we encourage it.
Yeah. For us, knowledge is probably the most important, information and knowledge is the most important tool that we have in the law enforcement toolbox.
Right.
Allows us to stay one step ahead. And that's a good thing. So the other thing I wanted to talk about with you gentlemen, because you guys really are on the cutting edge of this. One of the things that we're seeing a lot of today is prescription drug abuse. And someone recently asked me a question: how many people incarcerated at the House of Correction are there as a result of substance abuse? And you know, I thought about it at first in the traditional sense, which is how many people were there for possessing drugs, dealing drugs, driving under the influence of alcohol, those types of traditional things that you would associate with substance abuse. But then it occurred to me that, wait a minute, that number is probably a lot larger, because many of those other crimes, beanies to houses looking for things, are taking place by individuals either under the influence of drugs or alcohol, or someone looking to get drugs, or some sort of property to sell to get drugs. So when you look at, you know, more of a global view of things, the answer to that question is most of the people incarcerated in the House of Correction today are there as a result of drugs or alcohol. One of the things that, and Marshfield was the first one to roll this out, which is a great idea, was to have a prescription drug take-back box. And I know the District Attorney's Office is working very hard, along with us at the Sheriff's Office, to roll a similar program out all over Plymouth County. We're hoping all 27 communities. We're partnering with the District Attorney's Office, the Sheriff's Office, the police chiefs, also the Department of Public Health, State Department of Public Health. So if you guys, Phil, if you could just describe that program for the viewers, and then we'll hear from Tim on how the boxes are coming.
Certainly. The prescription drug abuse and use has become a major problem in our entire region. And the idea of getting unwanted or unused medications out of the houses, out of the hands of where they could potentially be abused or used by people experimenting with them that could get hooked on them, is a great idea, but nobody knew what to do with them. The drugstores don't take them back, the doctors don't take them. Certainly we don't want people to flush any of the medication down the toilet and potentially contaminate our water, nor do we want them to bundle it up and throw it away in the trash. So having a proper place to dispose of it is essential. And the police station is the ideal location. We're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The prescription drug drop box looks much like a mailbox. It's locked, it's secured to the floor, it's watched 24/7. It has an opening where you can open the lid, throw the medication in, close the lid. It can be done anonymously. You don't need to know, we don't need to know who dropped this off or where it came from, or even what kind of prescription medication it is. But it's very important to get that medication out of the households, out of the cabinets, and disposed of properly and safely.
Because traditionally, really the only way to do that was to wait for the hazardous waste day at your local transfer station or you know, disposal facility locally. So this is a great thing. Tim, you're really helping fund this this box through some of the drug seizure money, is that right?
That's right. We're able to use our drug forfeited money for a lot of good things, and we go after drug dealers themselves. The true drug dealers, not users, but individuals who are out there selling drugs. They value their money, they value their cars, and other proceeds that they make that they can use from their drug trade. So we're allowed to put those monies back into the community once we convict them, if we can prove those monies came from drug dealing. So we've been able to do that for a variety of different things, but importantly, we're able to come and give up some money in conjunction with some of the partners you've already mentioned, but also including Covanta Energy, which is down at CMAS, which is where we're going to actually have the drugs destroyed, which is a real big piece of the puzzle, because even though we can have a container located in the police stations and in their common area, but we still need a place for those drugs to go, because there is so much medication that's out there. And it's very important, because a lot of it on the street, it's very high value. It's worth a lot of money. And we have some kids that sometimes may go to their grandparents' home. Perhaps the grandparents no longer using that medication, or maybe perhaps it's outdated now and they've got more medication. And as the chief said, you don't want to create an environmental issue by putting it down your toilet. So therefore, we need to make sure there's a smart way to get those drugs out of the house and put them in a position where we can get rid of them for good. So, I think that by working together, and we're hopeful that right now I think we have 22 of the 27 communities. There were a number that were already involved in it before we started this program, but I think that we'll be up and running in the next month or two, and I'm very hopeful that we'll eventually get everybody involved in this so that Plymouth County will be able to not only collect the drugs, but also, more importantly, destroy them in a safe fashion, and that's where Covanta Energy comes in and really a step forward to help us to do that.
Yeah. So the drugs are actually being incinerated.
That's correct.
And generating power. That's
correct.
That's good. It's another point that you make that comes to mind is individuals, people that have those drugs that are unused in their cabinet. That's probably something that they want to be aware of, and it's not just youngsters, grandchildren, friends of grandchildren, but people that come into the house to do some work. And even if it's not outdated medication, there are stories all the time, and I'm sure you could tell us a couple of those, Phil, where some person has workers in to do some renovations on a house or something, and next thing you know, they go and they take the pill bottle still there, but it's half empty.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And oftentimes when somebody has the house on the market and they have open houses, some people aren't necessarily just going there to look at the house to buy. They're going there looking for other things to steal. And the medicine cabinets, the bathroom, the kitchen cabinets, the first places they check. That happens a lot. And with the work crews and cleaning companies and different things that are out there, you got to make sure that you have a real reputable company, because we see a lot of that, an awful lot of that.
So be vigilant. Keep your eyes on your own prescriptions. And
well, yeah, it would be ideal if they could be kept locked up somewhere so that they'd be safe and out of the hands of people that even young children that live in the house, so that they can't have access to it.
Yeah, I remember, as I was growing up, we were always told, avoid, because a lot of those pills, they look like jelly beans, or they're colorful. They actually could attract children. But I think, while we've always been careful of that, we need to now start to think, because as Tim points out, a lot of these medications have a very high street value, so somebody could be selling that,
Yeah, the opiates are really our big problem right now in our county and in the Commonwealth of Mass, and that we've seen so many fatal overdoses that have occurred all throughout our county, and especially in the last few years. And so, to me, it's really important to make sure we have people who have some pain medication, whether it's OxyContin, oxycodone, whatever it may be, that we make sure that we get that out of there, because an 80-milligram tablet of OxyContin can go for $80 on the street. Even though it's only produced, it costs $4 for the pharmaceutical company to produce it. Wow. So what we unfortunately are seeing is that kids who may start out by using some outdated or unwanted old prescription medication from perhaps their grandparents or somebody else's grandparents' home, we see young kids getting involved in that, and the next thing you know, their body changes, they start craving for that opiate in their system. They can no longer afford to buy oxys or get oxys anymore. Their source is over. Before you know it, they're actually using heroin. And heroin nowadays is so pure, 95% pure, that we have lots of kids who are taking needles. Good kids, regular kids, and it doesn't matter if you are from urban areas, suburban, or rural. It's happening everywhere. We have young kids who are putting needles in their arms, and they are dying in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And I think this is another step that we can try to eliminate some of the things that occur before somebody gets addicted to the opiates. And that's why this is important. We still have a fight on that end of trying to help. We can help the kids that we can help, but we need to make sure, I think, that we do everything we can, and that's why these medical boxes, I believe, are really important for our community.
Yeah, I think it's great that you're dedicating some of that drug money to the front end of this problem, because if we can head this off to any degree, it certainly is going to. A single life saved is priceless, as far as I am concerned, and I'm sure you.
And if you've ever talked to a parent that has a child that has gone down that road, whether or not they hurt themselves, it's not unusual. A kid will hurt his back or something, an 18, 19-year-old kid, and the next thing you know, they gave him pain medication, maybe too much medication, and the next thing you know, he's using that. If you ever talk to a parent that's gone down that road and you see the devastation in their face, they're trying to help their kids, these kids that they put them into rehab or facilities, and quite honestly, generally the first few times it doesn't work. Sometimes it never works. But if there's something that we can do to prevent that, prevent the pain from that they're undergoing, we need to do that. And I've had too many conversations with too many parents that have lost their children as a result of unattended fatal overdoses, that not to know that this is an important thing to do. I know the chief has been dealing with the issue in Marshfield, and that we're all dealing with it countywide, and my fellow DAs across the state are dealing with it also. And I think it's something that we need to be more preventative on that front end, like you said.
Get more proactive, yeah. And that's why I appreciate so much you guys coming on the show to talk about these things, because this may be something that most people don't think about until it touches their lives or the lives of somebody close to them. And I know several people in my circle of friends who have experienced this firsthand. And it, as you say, Tim, it's devastating. I don't know how that they're able to deal with this. But, you know, the irony of this is that the lucky ones who are addicted to the heroin, because that seems to be the worst right now, is the lucky ones end up at the House of Correction.
Mm-hmm.
You're right.
You know,
Yeah.
and it's really a devastating thing. So the more people know, and I know that they can check your website for information. They can check our website for information. Do you folks have?
It's right on our website as well.
Oh, beautiful.
And the program has been a major success. We've been emptying it maybe every 3 or 4 days. We have thousands of pounds in pills that we've taken off the street.
Yeah.
And I commend both of you in an effort to get that done countywide, because it's needed, and it's a great service. So thank you very much.
Yeah. And you guys are very, very meticulous and very careful about how those drugs, when you take them in, they're inventoried. There are DEA regulations that have to be followed, I imagine.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah.
As far as the inventory, by the sheer amount that we have, each individual pill is not counted because we have that much, but it is all weighed.
Yeah. Wow. There's so many of these.
We've taken in everything from vitamins and aspirin all the way up the ladder to the opiates,
Yeah.
Oxycontin, oxycodone.
And that's important to note. You say vitamins to aspirin. There are situations, I know in my own family, when I have taken pill bottles out and inquired as to what they are, or be it my parents' house or grandparents' house, and you inquire, and they may not even know. And if it's not something, I think it's important for people to know, if it's not something they're using at that time for a specific condition or medical issue, then
time to get rid of it.
Time to get rid of it before
Right.
somebody gets his hands on it.
And we're also, Sheriff, I think we're also trying to do another step as pertains to, because the medical boxes do not deal with hypodermic needles or needles such as that per se.
That's a great point.
So we need to make sure that, I think we're going to try to do something for the sharps themselves. And even for, like I have a son that's a diabetic. He has to dispose of his sharps, in a timely fashion. And a place for that to go that's centrally located, I think, would be a good step.
Yeah, I understand CVS Pharmacy
Right.
has been talking to you guys about getting a separate container. And I know in a lot of our communities we're getting a lot of requests now, and I'm sure
Yeah.
you've heard about it, that people are finding used hypodermic needles in public places.
Yeah, in 2006, when they legalized hypodermic syringes, where you no longer needed a permit to have them, you just had to be 18 years old, you could buy them in the store, any of the drugstores. Along with that law came a mandate that every police station, fire station, and Board of Health have a sharps container. So we do have one in the lobby, separate and aside from the prescription drug drop box, and we do get calls all the time, more now than ever before, because of the amount of use, and the addict doesn't need to keep the same dirty needle, and it just seems to be tossed out because we get calls about them down the beach
Sure.
or the playgrounds, the parks, the parking lots. They're everywhere.
Yeah, and legitimate concerns. Summertime, people walking around in bare feet, you step on those things. It's very dangerous.
And the problem is that AIDS doesn't last very long outside the host. However, other diseases like hepatitis C can last for extended periods of time under the right weather conditions. And if somebody gets poked with that, it's a problem.
Yeah, very bad.
And once again, you see them everywhere. I've found empty hypodermic needles in the parking lot of the district attorney's office in Brockton.
Wow.
Right there as you walk in.
Yeah.
Once again, they can be everywhere. And it doesn't have to be, like I said, it doesn't have to be at the beach or an urban community such as the city. They can be everywhere, and I think also it's really created an issue for police officers. It's created an issue for emergency room physicians and EMTs getting stuck with needles and things such as that. So I think that there's a plethora of issues out there with those hypodermic needles, and unfortunately, disposal, people that are using them, especially for illegal means, they're not concerned with where those used hypos are going.
Right. Well, I want to thank my guests, District Attorney Tim Cruz and Marshfield Police Chief Phil Tavares, for coming on Safe Communities. These are definitely two men who work tirelessly and very, very well to make safe communities. So thank you, gentlemen, for coming.
Thank you for
Thank
the
you, Sheriff.
opportunity.
Thank you.